Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. Okay, so now can we turn to page 36 of your notes? We are going to talk a little bit about how your digestive system performs other processes. Previously, we have spoken about ingestion and digestion. Alright, and now we are going to move on to the other three processes: absorption, assimilation, and egestion for this video. Okay, so we'll first talk about absorption, and we'll first start off with the small intestine. Alright, and the small intestine actually, alright, if you remember, there's two parts. Okay, so there's there's the tiny little part known as the duodenum. Alright, and the bulk of the intestine will be the ileum, and the ileum is the site of absorption of the small intestine. Okay, so you need to remember the ileum. Alright, so it's the absorption. For duodenum, it's mainly for digestion. Okay, and we move on. We take a look at how the small intestine is like. You need to know a little bit about the features. Okay, so the small intestine is a very long tube, and if we open up this tube, actually it looks something like this diagram that we are seeing over here on the screen. Alright, and if you take a look at it, so there are many folds. Okay, so it's folded. Alright, folds, and even these tiny little protrusions over here, and these tiny little protrusions are known as the villi. Alright, so if we take a look, the folding, okay, the villi, the main job is like the root hair cell. You know, the root hair that's protruding out. So actually, this increases the surface area to volume ratio, and hence our absorption can be much faster. Okay, so we have a let me just pardon. Alright, so we have a faster rate of absorption. Okay, and this absorption of nutrients is by diffusion. Okay, and the small intestine, another feature of it is it's 6 meters long. Alright, so when it's so long, the food takes a long time to travel through the small intestine, and the time allows the food to be completely absorbed. Alright, by the time it reaches the end of the small intestine, if it hasn't been so. Okay, and there's a third point to note. Alright, so the third point will be this part. Alright, so the small intestine is surrounded with a lot of blood capillaries. So the blood, alright, can take away all the nutrients, okay, so that the diffusion gradient can be maintained. Alright, so if we take a look at this last part, okay, so the digested nutrients are absorbed by diffusion into the blood capillaries. So these nutrients that we are referring to is mainly two nutrients: glucose and amino acids. Okay, so how about fats? The products of fat digestion is the fatty acids and glycerol. They are taken away by another mechanism that we won't need to know. Alright, and these glucose and amino acids, the ones that we are interested in, they are taken into the blood capillaries. So when they are inside the blood, okay, it's specifically inside the blood plasma. Okay, so the blood plasma is the yellow liquid in the blood that helps to transport dissolved substances. Alright, so that is the small intestine. If we move down a bit, we also see the large intestine. So the large intestine basically just absorb the remaining water and mineral salts. Okay, and it's not a lot. Okay, it's just about 10%. Alright, so the 90% of the water is already absorbed in the small intestine. Okay, and lastly, the egestion occurs in the anus. So this is something that can be, you can remember quite easily, I believe. Next, we want to talk a little bit about assimilation. So assimilation, we must talk about the liver, okay? And the liver has many functions. Alright, and why is the liver so important? It's because the digested nutrients, the sugars, the amino acids, and sugars, if you remember, is the glucose, okay? They are first transported to the liver, and by a very special structure. It's known as the hepatic portal vein. So this hepatic portal vein will connect the small intestine and transport the nutrients to the liver. Alright, and over here, let's just elaborate a little bit more on the diagram. Okay, so you see the word hepatic artery, hepatic portal vein, hepatic vein. So this hepatic actually refers to the liver. Anything, alright, hepatic means liver. Okay, so the artery, if you remember, any artery is from the heart. Alright, so the oxygenated blood comes from the heart to the liver through the hepatic artery, and the hepatic vein will send the oxygenated blood back to the heart. Alright, so one thing that you want to note, because of the things it's transporting, the hepatic portal vein has a very high concentration of glucose and amino acids, and this is something that you will want to highlight as well. Okay, moving on. Okay, we turn to the next page, page 37. Alright, to talk about the functions of the liver. Okay, and the liver performs the assimilation. So if you remember what assimilation means, alright, assimilation basically we talk about how the body uses all the absorbed nutrients. Alright, so how the nutrients are being absorbed by the body. Okay, and I like to use this analogy called a bad pig to help me remember. So BADPIG. Alright, and this is something that you want, you can copy it down at the side of the notes, or you add additional notes into your additional foolscap paper into your notes as well. So B stands for bile. Okay, so the liver produces bile. Alright, A stands for deamination of amino acids. Alright, so deamination of excess amino acids. Alright, D stands for detox, detoxification. P stands for protein synthesis. So any plasma proteins, alright, are made in the liver. I stands for iron storage. Okay, so when the red blood cells are broken down, the hemoglobin contains the iron, and the iron is stored inside the liver itself. And G stands for glucose regulation. Alright, so if we take a look, okay, at the important parts, okay, so maybe 4 of the processes are a little bit more important. Okay, so I listed 4 of the functions inside the liver. So bile production, deamination of amino acids, detoxification, and glucose regulation. So these are the 4 functions that we want to talk about a little bit more. So first one, bile production. Okay, so if you remember, what does the bile do? Okay, so bile basically it just emulsifies fats. Okay, so physically separating the fats into smaller droplets. Okay, so maybe if some of you still confused about what is the emulsification, you can just elaborate. So if physical separation, it's not a chemical process. Okay, so and the fats become a smaller molecules so that there's a higher surface area to volume ratio. Okay, next one, deamination of excess amino acids. Okay, and we just need to know about this. So urea is formed when excess amino acids are deaminated. So the excess comes from, for example, maybe you eat a lot of extra proteins, okay, a lot of chicken, a lot of meat. Alright, so if you eat too much, you absorb too much amino acids, your body cannot cope, and the liver needs to remove the excess amino acids. Alright, so they will be converted to urea, and this urea actually will be removed by your urine. Alright, and there's also the remains of the amino acids. Okay, they are converted. Okay, so the remains of the amino acids are converted into glucose for use by the body. Okay, the next process, detoxification of alcohol. Basically, you just need to remember detox is to convert harmful becomes harmless. Alright, so alcohol, A lot of alcohol is very harmful. Okay, you cannot walk straight, you cannot think logically. Okay, so the liver works very hard to remove the alcohol from the blood, all right, and convert it into harmless compounds. So all these things, okay, if you don't want, you can don't remember. So these are the this is an enzyme. Dehydrogenase is an enzyme that converts alcohol into acetaldehyde. So it's something that you don't really need to remember. If you can just tell me that the alcohol detoxifies, the liver detoxifies alcohol is good enough. And last but not least, okay, we talk about blood glucose concentration regulation. Okay, so it's important that the amount of glucose in the blood remains constant. Okay, the concentration remains constant. So how does it do that? So for example, if you have, I'm going to just leave it for you to read the scenarios, but if you have a lot of glucose in the blood, okay, maybe you eat a lot of carbohydrates, it digests into glucose, and everything is taken into the bloodstream. Okay, not good. Too much is not good. All right, so your body will produce something called insulin. Your pancreas will produce the insulin. The insulin goes to the liver and will convert all the glucose into glycogen. All right, and this glycogen actually is a storage. So if your body doesn't use the glycogen, the glucose, it just store it as glycogen. And why do we need to store it? All right, so that when you, for example, you don't eat for a long period of time, okay, you have very little glucose in your body needs to use the glucose for respiration. The body will convert the glycogen back to glucose, okay, using another hormone called glucagon. Okay, so there's this insulin converting glucose into glycogen, and glycogen gets converted by glucagon back into glucose, so that the glucose can be used by the cells. Okay, so this is a process that we'll elaborate a little bit further when we are in towards the end of semester 2, so in another chapter. Alright, so that marks the end of this topic. So if we know about ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation, and egestion, and how it's carried out by the various parts of the alimentary canal and the accessory organs, is good enough. So that's the functions of the various parts. We also talk about the enzymes. Okay, we did a pop quiz. Okay, we're going to do the pop quiz for the digestive enzymes, so we need to be able to know the substrates and the products. Okay, hepatic portal vein. So if you remember, it connects the small intestine to the liver. All right, and this hepatic portal vein is high in glucose and amino acids. And lastly, bad pig. Okay, so you describe the functions of the liver. Okay, and if you know all that, all right, so you should be able to do the rest of the work regarding this topic. Okay, thank you. Bye.